Dads of Reddit, what's your best don't tell mom story? I'm the son in this story, but one time, when I was like 14 to 15, we had a family party at my aunt's house down the street. Eventually, the party just died down, and all the family started to go home. My dad decided to stay, and I asked if I could stay with him. Eventually, it was just my uncles and my dad drinking and telling stories at 2 AM, while I just sat and listened to them. It was the first time that I could remember staying up with the adults. It was a cool moment. Anyways, my dad got too drunk to drive us home, and no one else was there. We could have spent the night, but then my dad was like, "No, I know your aunt has bicycles in the garage. We should just ride bikes home. It'll take 10 minutes tops." So my dad and I rode bikes home, but my dad took a detour at an old park near my house. We started doing wheelies and donuts with our bicycles on the giant grass field. Well, at least we tried. My dad was pretty drunk, so we were having a fun time falling over. Basically, we finally get home at 3 AM in the morning and we're covered in mud and grass. My dad looks over at me and whispers, "Okay, we have to be quiet," sneaking back in. "Don't tell mom what we did. She's going to be pissed if she finds out we rode bikes while I was drunk." Then he proceeded to knock on the door, and when my mom answered the door, he proceeded to tell her with glee exactly what he told me not to tell her. My mom was indeed pissed. That the reason the police and the fire department came to our neighborhood was because we were shooting off fireworks before the wife got home. My dad and I were driving on the road at night after my mom had specifically said I wasn't allowed to. When we pulled up to the street before my house, we switched drivers, so it looked like he drove home. When doing that, he slipped and fell and cut his head open and had to get stitches down his forehead. My mom still thinks it was from a thorn bush in our front yard. When my youngest daughter was about 7, she would help me wash my motorcycle in the garage. She would throw on my helmet and jump on the back and just sit there as I would polish the chrome. One day, I turned on the bike and took her on a quick ride down the alley. I went about 5 houses down and turned back. Our top speed was a neck-breaking 4 miles per hour. She absolutely loved it. We made it our secret, and I had her change clothes immediately so her mom wouldn't smell the exhaust. We finally told her mom when my daughter turned about 13. She's now 18 and still jumps on the back as often as possible. My 15-year-old son loved cars and learned to drive on our farm when he was 11. His crazy uncle Carnut loved that he loved cars and gave him a racing driving class as a Christmas gift. I spent a few months prepping him in my sports car and at the go-kart track, and then took him to the NASCAR racetrack for the class. Even though he had never driven on the street, he did great in the little Formula car, getting up to 180 on the straightaway, but towards the end, coming out of a chicane, he missed a shift and accidentally put it in first. This locked up the rear and he spun out, going into a chain link fence backwards. All I saw was the dust cloud, but he was okay, thanks to roll bar, neck brace, and helmet. We spent a good part of the drive home rehearsing what to tell my wife and how not to use the word crash. We told her after he finished college. Whenever my mom would leave town for work, my dad would tell me and my sisters it was make up your vegetables night, and we got to have pizza for dinner as long as we told my mom we had vegetables while she was away. We got busted when each of us answered with a different vegetable than the others did. I had a kinda rocky relationship with my dad when I was a teenager. We lived in the East Village in New York City. When the 2003 blackout happened, we spent the evening up on our roof talking for hours. What started off as a little bit of wine ended up being us polishing off about 3 bottles, hashing out what our issues were. Our relationship really improved after that, but I still remember the moment we both realized that my mom, who was out of town at the time, would be pissed if she realized we had gone through that much wine. We concocted a story that he had accidentally dropped a bag that had 2 bottles in it. As far as I know, she never suspected a thing. My dad took me and my brother to see Time Cop when I was 12. Nobody in the house was allowed to see rated R movies, but in retrospect, my dad must have gone out to the movies in secret a lot when he was on the road, made sales calls, territory was the whole state. My 6-year-old is in a phase right now where every time he thinks he's done something bad, he says don't tell mom. And then he starts crying because I laugh, and he thinks that means I'm gonna tell her. When he first did it, I was kinda like, whoa, is my wife being too strict or punitive or something? But he does the same thing to my wife saying don't tell daddy. He just doesn't want us to share information, I guess. When my dad's favorite toaster broke, he insisted on fixing it again, while my mom really wanted him to just replace it. They had a small argument about it. Not a fight, just a back and forth about it. While my dad's got this toaster broken down into its base components, mom leaves to run some errands, and about an hour later my dad's got the toaster back together and he's gonna test it. He plugs it in, pops in some bread, and pushes the lever down. Nothing happens initially and he's like, weaving his head back and forth trying to see down inside it to see if it's working. Then a nice fat electric arc comes out of the outlet and the toaster turns into a fireball on the counter. My dad yells crap, yanks it out of the outlet and runs with it, still engulfed in flames, out to the backyard, and from the steps, hurls it towards our above ground pool. The pool of course is much too far away and it just lands in the grass, setting the lawn on fire. Now he's unfurling the garden hose and trying to get the dinky little sprinkler head off it so he could put out the fire. It doesn't go well. So he runs over to the burning toaster, kicks it towards the pool, in just his socks mind you, then scoops water out of the pool until it's just smoldering. Then he runs over and stamps the little fires out of the grass. He singed his beard, most of the hair off his arms and stinks of burned hair. His socks are ruined, the kind that go up over your calf, white with stripes, and he's soaked pretty much head to toe. The house stinks of ozone and melted plastic. The outlet is charred. There's a black patch on the backyard lawn. This man scrambles, cleans the kitchen, opens every window to air out the house, sweeps and mops, swaps the outlet for one from the garage, resets the breakers, parks the lawnmower on the scorched grass, trims the burned hair out of his beard, showers, and disposes of his burned and grass-stained socks, and what's left of the toaster. Then he puts me in his truck. We go to Kmart and grab a new toaster and I of course am sworn to secrecy. I never told my mom, but he passed 4 years ago, so I think I'll tell her the next time I see her. She'll have a laugh I'm sure. I have a kinda dad story. It involves my dad's best friend and former employee at that time. My dad built this custom birdhouse specifically for purple martins because my mom loves birds. So he builds a custom house and then hoists it like 25 feet in the air. It looks like a two-story colonial house and is about 3 feet on each side and 4 feet tall. It is beautiful. So my parents went out of town and my older brother and I decided to do shrooms and light off fireworks. We come up with this brilliant plan to see if either of us can name Roman candles and shoot the flaming balls into the birdhouse holes. So yeah, we had surprisingly great aim. The birdhouse ended up catching on fire, and I had to haul ass to get the hose back there so we could put it out before his labor of love burns down. The next day we are surveying the damage and it's not good. The whole front of this birdhouse was crispy and charred. So my brother calls my dad's friend, I'll call him Jerry, and tells him what happened because we needed a ladder fast. Jerry, being the champ that he is, laughs and decides to show some pity and helps us come up with a plan. He brought over his work van and we stood a big ass ladder on top of the roof of the van. We bought paint and I held the ladder steady while my brother touched up the birdhouse. Jerry never said a word to my parents and neither did we. Through wind, rain, snow, and sun our paint held up. Until about 15 years later my brother and I finally told them what happened. I swear I could see pride in my dad's eyes. Not a father, but my dad was explaining to my brother and I how serious gun safety is, using his M1911 for demonstrative purposes. Now, always remove the magazine. Doesn't remove the magazine. Check the mag as well in the chamber. Does neither of those things. After that you can let the hammer down gently or pull the trigger. Pulls the trigger. This would have been funny if we were on the range. Nope, we were in a small basement room with zero ear protection. Ears ringing, a clean bullet hole through 6 inches of an oak TV stand, and a dog shitting while running away. He calmly looked at us and said only this. Please don't tell your mother, I just bought this gun. I was 17 and went to a work Christmas party, grocery store. The venue was a restaurant co-owned by the store manager. No one, least of all the manager, cared if anyone was drinking. And it was open bar. So I drank quite a bit. Went home, was driven by another co-worker, only to see my mom waiting for me. She knew straight away I was tanked, and was really upset. Alcohol wasn't frowned upon, or forbidden at home, but getting too drunk was still a no-no. My mom said to wait up for my dad, so he can give me a scolding. My dad was at the neighbors watching hockey. He came home not long after, probably a bit more tipsy than I was. Asked me why I was up, I told him. He asked if I drove. I said no. He asked if I did something stupid. I said no. Told me, go to bed. If mom asks tomorrow, tell her I told you off, and we'll think of some BS punishment later. I'm pretty sure my mom still doesn't know. That's it for today. Take care of each other in the comments, and I'll see you all tomorrow.